Great. Steven, how are you today?
Oh, I could use what's a nap, but it's longer than like 8 hours.
Hibernation?
Okay, I could use some hibernation right now.
It's getting to be winter, so
Yeah, I didn't get very much sleep, and the sleep I did have was full of dreams of Pathfinder and D&D like numbers and spreadsheets,
we may need to get
which
you.
felt like a lot of work.
We might need to get you another hobby. Just saying.
So before we get into our main topic for today, Chris, I guess we could talk about all the exciting things going on in D&D and RPGs at large. I think the biggest thing that's happened since our Spelljammer recording was that WotC basically removed all the lore associated with the Hadozee and then removed all their artwork.
So are the Hadozee just going to go away?
I think WotC is never going to look at the Hadozee ever again and be like, we made these things and they're there and we're never going to talk about it again.
It's UA. It just didn't make the cut. Sorry.
It's actually kind of amazing that they waited until now to remove the Hadozee and like no one else was kicking up a fuss about like the Hadozee's like artwork until now with the release, because like they had artwork of the Hadozee since they announced Planescape. And for those who don't know, the Hadozee are a race of monkeys.
Flying space monkeys.
Yeah, they're like flying space monkeys. And really, they didn't do anything for me, so we didn't really talk about them beyond like their broken mechanics here. The artwork was problematic for a couple of reasons. One I didn't notice until someone pointed it out was they're wearing pants and shirts, but the way their wing flaps are connected is at their wrists and their ankles. So how were they able to put on the pants and the shirt?
Fairway Velcro. You weren't around the 80s, man.
You're right.
It was big. It was big.
They are huge buyers of Tearaway Velcro pants. Like every time they get in a combat, they just like rip off their pants. I don't know.
Haven't you ever seen like WWE wrestling and they just tear shit off of them?
That's fair.
Getting it on's a little hard, but
they also had a very like kind of strong minstrel vibe to them, which is it's fine.
They looked like space clowns with lutes.
Yeah. But that wasn't problematic until I guess we got the lore on them, where they were kind of manipulated genetic experiments by wizards, which and then there are a couple of other parallels to like racist parallels to like black people and things of that nature.
Slavery?
Yeah, and slavery and all sorts of stuff. So they're like, oops, we're just going to delete all this information from D&D Beyond and remove all of their artwork. But the problem, like they didn't catch this beforehand, is all of their main designers are focused on OneD&D, which we'll get to in just a moment. And so like this is all kind of, I don't want to say junior, but like they're less experienced maybe designers, and things aren't getting as closely checked over as they would because everyone's focused on like OneD&D. And so like, things are going to slip through the cracks. Of course, there's the other issue of in 2E, Hadozees are called deck apes, which also took someone else to point out. Sometimes you call a deck a porch, and sometimes people call apes monkeys, which gets to the racial slur of porch monkeys. And so there's a lot of issues wrapped up in the Hadozee.
It was ugly all around. There were so many races to choose from 2E.
Yeah, they could have done the gift twice.
Yeah. I mean,
or a playable Neogi. That might have been kind of cool.
If they're going to remake a fucking astral elf, then do lizard folks. Who doesn't want giant lizards flying around on spaceships? They did.
Lizard folk are already made.
Yeah, but they can make an astral lizard folk. They did it with elves.
Lizard.
They do it with elves for everything. There you go. Just to completely, drive me over the edge, they could have made a playable Mind Flayer race.
Ooh, speaking of playable Mind Flayer race,
no.
In 3rd edition, there's a book called Savage Species where you could play as monstrous creatures, which included things like the Mind Flayer. Of course, like you were just assumed to be you would treat yourself as, I don't remember specifically for Mind Flayers, but you would treat yourself as like level 1 to like level 5 or like 5 levels higher than your companions. So like when they hit 6th level and they got all like their 6th level class feat stuff, you would be hitting 1st level in that class, but still be 6th level. Which I did make some homebrew that was kind of like Savage Species, where you can take levels, as it were, in other monsters and have a stronger kind of like monster race, but your level progression was a little sloped down if you wanted like the full monster ability, and you only unlock them at certain levels.
Never bitch again about, oh, they've put so much stuff onto the DM that they have to do. That's you doing it to yourself.
I mean, that was just kind of for fun because I really liked the book Savage Species. I think it was a really cool idea, and I think it could work well with 5e. But...
yeah, then 5e.
I mean, it'd be really broken, but also at the same time, it's like if a DM is allowing it, like they know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Like that should be in like big bold on like the cover. It's like, if you allow this, you know what you're doing. That probably wouldn't sell as well.
Probably not. But you do this to yourself because you'll do something like this. It'll be pretty neat. You'll mention it at the table, and you know that we have at least 2 people that sit at our table in our current campaign, at least the one I'm in, that'll be like, oh, they'll read it and they'll come back to you, and then they'll start using these powers, and then your brow will get all furrowed, and you'll be like, oh, why did I do this to myself?
The thing that has furrowed my brow more than anything is like the Battle Dancer and the Lucky Feet. Yeah, those are the 2 that really grind my
like, just don't
cogs.
let the Lucky Feet in the game.
Well, I would do that now.
They did nerf it in 1E, though.
It's not nerfed.
1D&D.
It is not nerfed.
Well, no, it's not. The halfling.
In fact, I feel like it got a buff. But we'll get to 1D in just
we could talk forever.
Calm your horses. That's kind of, I don't want to say it's exciting news. It's just, it's a problem that WotC has. I'm surprised. I thought they were hiring like diversity editors and cultural writers.
It's
and stuff.
interesting you say that.
So it's kind of surprised that it got missed.
They did. The last 2 books had...
Unless they didn't do it for Spelljammers.
They didn't. The last 2 books, if you look in the credits, have diversity and... I forget what the other word is. It's a diversity editor. It's a consultant that'll go through and obviously try and bring WotC into the 21st century. For some reason, they're not in Spelljammer. They were for the previous 2 books. I know they were for Witch Light, blah blah blah.
Wild Beyond the Witch Light.
Thank you, and whatever the book before that was, but no, and it was it was Radiant Citadel. I bet they were in. And that was a lot of that burned up a lot of Reddit threads and Twitter feeds because that people wanted to know why they did that. Probably because they're all working on OneD&D. But
which just means that this was like a throwaway, like, ooh, let's try and get some more money while we're working on OneD&D.
I don't think it was. I think that they had this scheduled for a long, long time, and then OneD&D they started fast tracking it because I really wasn't expecting OneD&D for probably a couple more years. I thought they would milk it 5e for as much as they could.
It's 10 years once it comes out.
It is, but
hey, OneD&D is 5e, Chris,
and 3e, and 2e, and 1e, and it's not basic, though. Nobody should ever play basic.
How about that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no cultural consultant credits. I mean, they might have, maybe, but you would think that they would put something in there.
No. I would say, hey, we're available to be editors, but then I've gone back and looked at some of our old articles and been editing them, and no, you can't hire us for that role.
I mean, editor just means you go back and fix them.
Then I'm good at that right now.
So that's kind of the excitement around Hadozee. Of course, when they pulled the lore, they then got a ton of people upset that their digital license on D&D Beyond, they lost access to pictures and lore. And so, it's like, I don't know, WotC is kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation where like people were upset it's there and then people were upset that they pulled it. And I think people are
Assholes.
To read... Well, no, I think it's more people fail to understand when you buy a digital product, you are not buying that product. You are instead buying a license to view that product or to access that product. But that product can be taken away at any time. It's just bad business to do that.
Everybody read those terms when you download Apple Music.
You
just saying, read them because, I mean...
I mean, if somehow Apple like disappears tomorrow, like all of your iTunes music on, because you never actually did it.
Nope, you didn't.
And that's the problem with, I mean, I don't want to say it's the problem with DRM. There are good reasons to have DRM. There are also good reasons not to have DRM.
That's why I still have 5,000 CDs.
Well, that's also why I
somewhere.
use like GOG.com to like buy games and stuff. It's because it's DRM free, which means, yes, when I buy it, it's actually yours. Own it. I can throw it on like a flash drive and give it to other people, if I want to share, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So the other exciting bit of news is that OneD&D had its release, and they did the survey for it. This one was all on character origins. We kind of touched on this a little bit last podcast, if I remember correctly. The only reason I want to talk about this is because, similar to the Hadozee thing, it seems like anything that WotC can't do anything without being called racist.
Well, there's the thing, and it. We've had these discussions before as we sit across the table because you're 30.
I'm only 30? God, I feel 80.
I'm a little older.
Yeah. 80, like I said.
You're not quite there. Although I did create time travel because I thought I was 52 all year, and I'm only 51. I'll be 52 next year, so I invented time travel.
You bought yourself an extra year.
I did. A lot of it has to do with the older generation players not understanding what's wrong with this.
Well, no. So let me tell you why OneD&D is now being called racist. Which part of it is like you guys are just being not nitpicky, but like
looking for a reason.
Yeah, like over exaggerating stuff, and then other parts it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of a misstep, but
it's also UA.
Yeah. Well, what they're getting called racist for is the backgrounds, the background templates that they provided, which again are templates. It's just a way of creating this background. Is that certain backgrounds, like Gladiator, you learn Orc, which is like, okay, so apparently gladiators are largely orcs, and so it's time to learn Orc because you're a gladiator. All right, that's kind of problematic. I get what you're saying. There's Tinkerer, or like the Tinkerer background or something, where you learn Gnome. Okay, so WotC's assuming that if you're a Tinkerer, you speak Gnome, because apparently all blueprints are written in Gnome. It was like, all right, I can get what people are saying there. Like, that's a little restrictive. On the other hand, they are supposed to be examples of what a background can look like. You are free to, like, they recommend making your own, yep. And then, you can kind of look at what they're doing over here.
Or they even say change the existing ones to tailor them to your campaign.
I get why people, though, are a little upset that, like, you learn Gnomish if you tinker, or you learn Orc if you fight. Like, why that's a little problematic. They should have had, like, a list of languages that you could pick, and then, like, the last option would be, like, or any of your choice. The problem I have is when they start saying WotC's being racist because dwarves gain the ability to gain tremor sense, or that orcs gain some sort of adrenaline rush, where that is not, like, cultural stereotyping. That is WotC saying this unique race that are not humans has a physiological trait that either, like, in the idea of orcs, is that they can access their adrenaline faster, as an adrenaline rush, or that dwarves can have tremor sense. It doesn't matter if they've never been in a mountain or touched stone. If physiologically they can all gain tremor sense by touching stone, that's not going to change just because you were never in a mountain before. It's just part of your nature. It's like how we're all born with appendices, but we don't use it. It's still there. So,
So wait, go back. Hang on.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I mean, it's just Twitter. It's like one person who turns a mountain into a molehill into a mountain.
Who are we being culturally insensitive to in the real world because dwarves have tremor sense or gnomes can use tinker tools?
Well, no, I mean, anyone can use tinker tools, but the idea is that all tinkerers, or all gnomes tinker, which is why that language is deep.
Great. So,
which is a cultural
but who does it offend in the real world? I get when there's a parallel with orc, gladiator, and the stereotypes that have been attached to the orc.
Yeah, like Mongoloid features from Tolkien, or...
Yes. Gnomes gnomish buildings tinkerers. I don't know what the PC term is for someone that is, short people. What? I don't know what they even. I don't even know who are we insulting. Who are we offending?
Gnomes.
Gnomes suck. They belong in your garden with pointy little hats and never move.
I think it's more the people have problem with the cultural absolutism that comes with all people who tinker speaking gnome and all fighters speaking orc. That's the issue people are approaching it with. And I understand, the cultural appropriate, absolutism that's going on, in which case it's just, you defeat that by providing more options than just a single option for your language or things of that nature.
They write it in there.
The other problem is, I think people are way too fast to say that something WotC is doing is racist because there are, D&D is a lot bigger than it was, which is great for it because it means we have a whole lot of new ideas. We have a lot of new people taking part in RPGs. There's a huge amount of new cultures being introduced to it.
I'm starting to think that have always been the biggest proponent of the fact that I love how much the game has grown since when I was a kid and got beat up for it. You say things like this and it hurts my soul.
The issue that we're facing, though, is a lot of people tie their entire identity up in D&D. And so if they see something that does not resonate within them 100%, they're going to cry foul way faster than other people. And now there are serious missteps that WotC has made, and they have backtracked on that. They have tried to correct it, and so that you can applaud them for doing that. The issue, and they still mess up from time to time, like saying if you're a gladiator, you automatically speak orc. Like, all right, that is problematic in itself. What's not problematic is if you're a dwarf and you gain tremor sense, because that is a part of your physiological nature. Like, that is just innate to being a dwarf. That's not racist if WotC is saying all dwarves have tremor sense because that is within their biological, physiological nature. That's like saying, if they put something about our appendix in there about humans, like, oh, humans have a 50% chance of having an appendicitis attack every year. Like, that's not racism. That's just a physiological trait.
I don't.
But
everybody has thumbs. I don't care.
At this point, there is the only way WotC is going to escape being called racist is basically just being like, pick what race you are. You gain that name as your race. It comes with nothing else. Pick a background. You gain that name as your background. You gain no other mechanics. Here's a massive list. Pick 5.
Yeah, they're not giving us guidance now. What are we supposed to do? It is the amount of shit that they have had heaped upon them is unfucking believable.
People, part of that mountain is their fault.
It's a fucking pretend game. Please stop. Everybody fucks up. Everybody. Big corporations are just more people in one area fucking up as a group. They're trying.
Well,
they could get better, a lot better, a lot faster.
Is WotC signals a lot that they're very culturally aware, and so when they have a misstep, which kind of happens often, they get a ton of shit thrown at them.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of it is they saw they could make a lot of money by talking about how culturally open and how like, I don't know, do kids say with it anymore?
You're asking me?
I don't know.
I have kids. I don't know.
So they go out of their way to show how culturally awake and sensitive that they are. Unfortunately, because of that marketing, they dig themselves an even deeper, shithole, because then they fuck up. And it kind of shows like, hey, there are a lot of talk. They don't always walk the walk. I feel like that's a 90s reference.
That totally is.
Okay, they probably don't say that anymore as well. And so like this is kind of like self-inflicted wounds on themselves, basically. But also at the same time, like, people are also ready to just like leap at the chance to go at WotC's throat.
Fuck you, go play fucking Pathfinder.
Paizo has done a really good job of being very culturally aware and open.
They were ahead of the curve by about 3 years. That's it. Not even. If you look back, you still have penalties
I'm fine with that.
races in them. Oh, you're fine with that. You're fine with penalties for your race.
I was fine with D&D
I was
penalties.
too, but no one says anything about Pathfinder because they're the smaller one. Everybody likes the small guy. It's like when Atari was around. Do you know what Atari is?
I know what Atari is, Chris.
Atari. They got bashed after everything took off. Everybody loved ColecoVision or Intellivision. It sucked, but it was cool. They had like 3 or 4 great games. Everybody loved them. Nobody loved the Betamax though. You know.
Well, also,
anyways.
I think one of the benefits for like something like Pathfinder 2e is that everything's behind a feat, so everything is by choice. So if you don't want like gnome lore, you don't have to pick that feat. You can pick something else, and so you have way more opportunity and freedom to make your character, which is kind of.
You're still starting off by picking a race with a negative benefit to that race.
But then you get even more benefits because you take that penalty. So instead of only getting 2 free boosts, you get 3 free boosts and a penalty.
I get it, but there's still a negative connotation placed upon that race based upon the fact that they are that race. But
it's never any mental, or it's never intelligence that they take the penalty.
I couldn't tell you.
It's unfortunately WotC put intelligence for orcs back in Volo's guide, so unfortunately WotC kind of suffered from. But also like there's more freedom because you have greater choices, and so you never feel constricted by a culture that being thrust upon your character.
Okay, so let me ask you the question: if OneD&D does that, let's say they put that penalty in, but you have more choices.
I don't think they're ever going to do that penalty. They're just going to keep doing what Tasha does, which is you get to pick your +2 and your +1.
But I'm not saying they will. Let's just hypothetically say they did that. Let's just say that they blatantly copied Pathfinder 2. Oh wait, that's what Pathfinder did with 3.5. But let's say it
wasn't blatantly copying; it was using the OGL.
And just taking everything, putting new names on it. There was a lot of similarities. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
No, they were using the OGL, so it's not copying. That is using the OGL. It's not copying, Chris. If you are using something freely given to you,
semantics. Let's say that they did.
All right.
Exactly the same as. Do you not think that they'd catch a ton of shit because of those negative?
That's because WotC keeps doing shit to catch shit, and so everyone is excited to like jump onto poor WotC.
And that's what drives me fucking crazy. If you don't like it, go play a different game, because people say this, and it's true. There are a million other really
people
badass
have made
games.
D&D their lifestyle game, and so D&D is their personality.
I'm playing Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is my lifestyle game.
That's fine.
Visit me in jail.
I mean, Blades in the Dark has its own cultural things, but it's also tied to a world. Whereas D&D claims it is system neutral, system agnostic, when it's really kind of not.
No, totally not.
And so, like, there's already a bunch of cultural baggage. And so, like, when you're making your own world, you're kind of like, I kind of have to remember kind of what WotC does, kind of not, about what each of their races are and all that stuff. And so, it's kind of an uphill battle.
It's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse because, you looking at you right now, you've never experienced what you have because you read a lot and research a lot. None of the people that just came on board have ever experienced an Editions war. It's coming. And they're ugly.
Yeah, we talked about this before, that there's going to be a big Editions war. People are going to be, flinging shit on both sides. And, like, people will be like, I'm going to play D&D before it became woke and, play 2014 5e D&D, and then other people will be like, I only like the woke, and they'll play the 2024 OneD&D, which is backwards compatible with 5e, so it's basically the same system, but kind of not really.
Do you think all the 4e people are just in the background laughing to themselves?
A little. I mean, actually, the 4e community is actually growing larger because a lot of people are like leaving 5e, and they're like, I actually like 4e and how it works. There's a couple of minor things you have to do, but I mean,
4e just takes too long for combat. That's the biggest knock on them.
You see, that's what they do, is you have the amount of hit points monsters have in Monster Manual 1 and 2, and then you double how much damage. In which case, you bring it up to what Monster Manual 3 assumes, and combats are a lot faster.
Okay. Nothing's as slow as 1e, though, because you have to look up all the charts, and then find your dice, and then roll them 7 times.
Well, that's also because you would have faced, 10 to 50 kobolds at a time.
Yes.
And then your players would have, their army of people.
Yeah. Or, that still, but they didn't really differentiate between levels, so you could still fight all those kobolds and be first level and have 10 sling stones, which you were required to keep track of.
Well, I mean, you used to use tactics and you hide behind a door. And
you run a lot.
Or you run.
It's like Doctor Who. That's what we did best, run. Okay, well, I don't... It it hurts my soul. That's why we have a pretty decent presence on Facebook. I know you never even look at it. And we are on Twitter. I can't... It's such a cesspool of anger and hatred. It hurts me. And I'm not a happy-go-lucky guy most of the time. So that's probably why we don't have as much of a presence on Twitter as we do. People, it's a fun game. Enjoy it. If it's something makes you upset, talk about it rationally with people and approach it rationally with people.
You get more likes if you call something racist.
I know. But you know what? WotC has been good. Yeah, they make a lot of fucking dumb mistakes. They really do. But in the last, I'd say, 4-5 years, they've at least started owning up to them. They always did before. They were just really slow to do it. But they're owning up to them, and at least they're coming out in public. Blizzard, Activision. That's all I have to say. Go. That's it. I'm done.
The other issue there is just, they have this huge baggage of, like, not necessarily 4E, but like definitely 3E with like Oriental Adventures and stuff, and previous history that they're trying to bring into 5E because of the grognards, like the old guard, the people who have been playing it for years because that's what they're familiar with. And so they're trying to keep that cultural baggage of D&D's past, updating it to 5e, and unfortunately there was a lot of racist stuff in D&D's history, and it's
but here's the other thing that I think people also have to remember: doesn't make it right. But at the time that Oriental Adventures, the original, because there was a lot of it written in 2e, the terminology that was being used was socially acceptable.
For some crowds, yes.
For most crowds, yes. The early 80s.
I'm also gonna
racism. No, I'm not saying that.
I'm just gonna interrupt this conversation. This is also two white dudes talking about this.
Right.
We might be on the older side.
Yeah. And it's like, it took me a while to get used to this. I've said this before. If you look at all the early books, the default pronoun was
he.
Right. Not anymore. Nor should be. I never thought about that. That's how I was taught to write. Now it's changed.
I did appreciate in 3E where we had iconics for each class. So like this is like the sorcerer was I can't remember his name, but like it was he, him. Then there was there was a monk, she, her, and so they would write the class features based off of if they were taking it. So like sorcerer defaulted to he, him. And then the monk and druid would default to she, her, like the way that they would write it, which is a little kind of confusing until you realize how they were doing that, because they just kept switching pronouns throughout the book.
But my point is this.
Use they, them, friend.
Yeah. The fact that, or
that's Z-Z, I guess.
That's what you do now. You didn't do that then. Nobody, the 70s and 80s, nobody was woke. Okay? Nobody. As you move forward, using Oriental Adventures as an example, you don't release a book in 2021 called Oriental Adventures unless you basically want to go broke.
I mean,
or
you
have
shouldn't
your
have
building
released
burned.
it in, 2001 when it got released as well?
Well, but there was a lot before that. I mean,
yeah, I know the first Oriental Adventures came out in, I want to say, late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. It might have been 83. And then the one for 3E, I think, was like 2001. It was like one of the first books they came out with, like swinging, like, wow, that seems all right.
Try and make the change as you move forward.
Yeah.
But people need to understand when they start digging back and start yelling and screaming about they've always been this way. It's all yes, but no. Put it into context of the time frame that it was in. There's no justification on any level for racism. Don't get me wrong with that at all. There
1985 was the first one.
Okay.
And then 2001 was the second.
I am not condoning racism. I'm just saying that cultural insensitivity was a real thing. Nobody gave it a second thought, and now they are, and that's a great thing.
Well, this kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with my wife, and I don't know how much of this I'm keeping in. I might be cutting a huge swath of this. This story might not even make it. But we were watching the animated Peter Pan from Disney, and the flash screen was like, hey, there's some racist shit in here. And yeah, those Indian but like, and WotC has this throughout like DM's Guild for all their old products. It's like, hey, there's some bad, there's some racist shit in here. We don't believe this. And, I don't want to see those things disappear, but I can't help but be needle at me that they're still wanting money for these like the really racist things where it's like, these things shouldn't disappear, but also you're putting kind of, these things behind a paywall, like something about that just feels wrong. And it's like, you shouldn't make these disappear, but also at the same time, you're making money off of these racist ideologies. Maybe what should happen is these companies should have the disclaimer, but then have it public and for free so that anyone can access it. That way you're not making money off of it, but you're also not hiding your sins of the past. But instead it's more like, oh, you put a disclaimer, it's fine, you can still make money off of it. And so you're making money off of your old racist behavior, which, I don't know, maybe you're a
socialist.
I'm being a naive baby, but it's just like, you're not really putting your money where your mouth is when you're saying, like, we no longer believe this, and yet you're still making money off of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean...
but then Disney might not have any properties to make money off of by that point.
Yeah, valid point. I don't have an answer for it. I mean, I wish I did. I really like the old stuff. That's the thing that I, cut my teeth on.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, back then, you didn't give it two thoughts. Now, if I'm using something as a reference, because I love looking at old Dragon magazines, there's a lot of cringy stuff in there. You're like, oh, well, God.
It's like, as a society, we are getting more empathetic towards others. Whereas before...
What society do you live in?
Okay, some people in the society are getting a lot more empathetic, and their voices are being heard more than before, when people, especially, the male ruling class, didn't have to care because their voices weren't heard. But with things like the internet, people whose voices weren't heard before can now be. And so you're kind of forced to hear them and forced to be more, for some people.
Horrible two-way street. And all the wackos can connect up.
Yeah, well, the internet's not perfect. Our main topic for I was about to say tonight. I don't, whatever time you're listening to this, early morning before you have your coffee, afternoon during lunch, in the background while you pick your nose. I don't know what you guys are doing. Hi there. How are you?
So, yeah. I've been
sorry, Chris. I got distracted.
Yeah. Was I picking my nose? I've been trying to get you to record this podcast for a while. So, Steven, let's talk about the Tools and Kits series, making tools useful in 5e.
Chris, I made the first tool when what was that? Like 2019, January 2019.
Sure. You think I'd know
so? I don't remember. I made it a long time ago, Chris.
You did?
I can't even remember last Tuesday. I don't know. I'm trying to remember when I first made something.
Alchemist Tools was on June 10th.
Yes, but that wasn't my first one. The first one was Cook's. So I made Cook's Utensils, I think January 2019. Mm-hmm. And then I've been making them, several of them every year. I haven't made as many this year just because, hey, I finished all the official ones, and now it's just random new ones that I think of, or that people ask about, or things of that nature to make. So like Fletcher's kit, fishing tackle, like those are all kind of new stuff in there. But all the other ones have been done, including like thieves' tools and vehicles, weaver's tools, woodcarver's tools, cooking utensils, climber's kit. I won't name them all because
we'd here for a while.
Yeah, but so they've all gone through the ringer. They all have expanded abilities. Some of them have recipes like herbalism kit or brewer supplies where you're actually making something and you hold on to that until later. And then there's other ones like disguise kit that just expand upon it and give DMs a little bit of rule guidance as to how they might interact within the game. And you can use as much or as little as you want. You can expand upon them for your own games, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But
so want to go over a few of them with you. Just first off, why? What was the inspiration for doing this? On the fact that you hated...
Because I thought they were really cool. I don't know. I like crafting. Or at least I like the concept of crafting a lot. I always seem to get distracted in video games where there's a crafting system. Like I really like Factorio and Stardew Valley, where you do a little bit of crafting here or there, which I think is kind of fun. I don't play. I mean, I used to play Minecraft a little bit until I realized I spent way too many hours there.
That'll do that.
And, I liked crafting. I really wanted to do a lot with crafting. And so the obvious thing is, hey, there are these tools. They aren't doing anything. How about we make them do something?
Yeah. And I mean, I never understood why you would get proficiency in a tool. It just seemed like it was something, okay, you have crafting. Here's some tools. You never used it.
Because I think, and that WotC dropped the ball on this, they wanted the tools to be used like skills. And so instead of calling for a strength athletics check, the DM should call for a strength woodworker's tools check. In which case, that would give you your proficiency that you'd be lacking when you would make like a strength athletics check. And so the idea was that you would make these checks, but also you had like 24 or 25 extra skills that weren't technically skills, they were tools. And so that could help like the sheet look neat. Not everyone's going to want vehicle water as their proficiency.
Unless you're in a pirate campaign.
Yeah, unless you're in a pirate campaign. And so, like by making these official skills, like they widened what you could do with their ability check system. But unfortunately, I don't think that ever really came across. I don't know. I haven't read through the tool section in a long time, so I don't know if it was not clearly well written to the DMs, or if it's just like a section that no one ever reads. Which
basically says that you need the tools to be able to complete whatever the thing you like. For thieves tools, you need thieves tools to, pick a lock.
Well, I mean,
doesn't help.
I mean, everyone. Well, no, it does, because you call for a dexterity thieves tools check.
Yeah,
and so it's proficiency plus your dexterity, and then like thieves tools gets like the most love out of any tool, just because it's like, oh, everyone knows how to incorporate locks into a dungeon or into an adventure. The issue is WotC never gave guidance on how to incorporate Weaver's tools into an adventure or a dungeon, and so people kind of floundered a lot with the tools because they weren't sure what to do with them.
Right.
And my kind of idea to do with them is give them mechanical uses, and then show the players, hey, with Weaver's tools you can make like this certain clothing that'll help with like cold climates. Hey, now they have a reason to use that tool or pick up that tool, things of that nature.
There's been a lot of focus on downtime days, it feels like, in the last few years. Was that part of the reason you decided to go this route? I mean, there's a lot of like, oh, we're not killing things because we want to talk, so now there's downtime. Was that a piece of it?
Downtime's kind of tricky, I think, because some tables have no downtime because, well, let's just get on with the adventure. No need to spend a week here. And then other people want downtime because they don't want people to go from like level 1 to level 20 in I think if you follow the adventure guidelines, you can do that within like 2 months. And they don't like that idea of like someone suddenly becoming an adventuring hero within, even less than a year. And so they will artificially place downtime days so it like expands how long it takes to get from level 1 to level 20 in like years. In which case, like you want players to do something there. It wasn't me specifically trying to find ideas to fill up downtime days. It was more of, why not use this? And if a player uses this wisely, then they get to use more of the tools that they have. It just kind of fit nicely in there. It wasn't really anything else did.
Great. So I had to reread them this morning. But I've got four different tools that I wanted to just touch on, and then one other one that probably one of your more recent articles that revolved around tools. So obviously the first one to dive into is this one probably put us on the map. We were, yay, people looked at our website. We were happy when we had triple digit hits.
You must be talking about Cartographer.
Exactly. No. And then this has exploded. Still probably our most popular page by a lot every year, but Alchemist tools.
Yes.
Supplies. Alchemist supplies.
Well, I think everyone's excited when they have Alchemist, and then you look at the Artificer Alchemist and you weep.
I wonder how many people Google this and then come to the site thinking we're going to tell them how to turn lead into gold. But anyways.
Probably not non-zero.
I would agree. More than zero. So the first thing I have to say in reading through all of these is, man, this was some of your best writing just from engaging. Now you're just kind of meh. Anyways, I tease.
I became professional, Chris.
Yeah, well, I like this writing style better. So Alchemist supplies.
I tried to be more helpful now than before, where I was just feeling grumpy.
Yeah. Well, you're actually semi-funny in these. Right off the bat, the thing I liked about Alchemist Supplies was you first go into the confusion between Alchemist and Herbalism Kit. Because the Herbalism Kit, the big thing for that is creating a potion of healing. And you make a very good point. The alchemy seems to be more of the person that would actually make the potion.
Well, there was confusion throughout the books.
Yeah, Herbalism Kit's I'm picking dandelions. Now, I get what they're saying. I mean, an herbalist can be, a person that can grind it all up more, and make something. But
my dividing line between an alchemist and a herbalist is an alchemist has a shop. A herbalist goes out in nature and grabs herbs.
Okay.
And so one's going to be more, I'm going to use the term organic than the other one. The other one's fast food processed bullshit that you shove into your mouth and it's delightful, but God knows where it came from.
Do you feel like there's any... No, don't. Do you feel like there's any line... I kind of got this hint, maybe I was wrong when I was reading through both of them, that herbalism, to your point, organic's a great word. Alchemy almost had more of a magical flavor to it. You could do...
they're both magical. You can't just grab some moss and slam it on someone and be like, now you're healed.
Right, but you can mix it. Well, I just had this feeling I can take it and I can mix it with all this other stuff and make a paste that smells really bad and I slap it onto you and you're all healed. Just like in bad movies. But alchemy it had more of a magical tinge. Is that just something
alchemy itself is just kind of it's considered a pseudoscience. So, yeah, there's some magical qualities. And because magic isn't real on Earth, obviously alchemy would have magic tendencies because alchemy can't happen on Earth.
Okay, you're hurting my soul.
So, yes, alchemy includes magic.
Okay. So, let's take a look. Alchemy includes magic. You make me sad. All right, so let's walk through...
alchemy is also mad scientist level.
Yeah. Awesome.
Which includes magic.
Yes.
If that's the way you want to flavor your mad scientist.
Works for me. So alchemy, you have recipes on how to make stuff. They're all DC checks. Explain the logic between how you decided to come up with those in here. It's spelled out in here. Don't get me wrong. You don't have to actually... Yeah, I know you have to look it up, don't you?
But, no, I'm just...
I guess go through kind of step by step. Each one has different kind of names, like Smith's Tools one I want to talk about because that's probably my favorite out of all of them. But when looking at alchemy, it's minor, moderate, and what was the other? Masterwork. And some of the other ones have different names. Masterwork always seems to be the highest tier.
The DCs, they're just simple DCs. You look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then 5 is easy, 10's moderate, 15's hard, 20's very difficult. 25's nearly impossible. 30 is nearly impossible. I forget what 20. They're all just synonyms of how difficult.
Okay.
And then the DCs for each individual item is based off of, in my opinion, how powerful its effects are in the game world. And so the more powerful something is, the higher the DC is. And the increased in gold cost. There's 3 things to kind of keep in mind with herbalism, alchemy, and all these other tools. And I've had a lot of people ask me why certain things are more expensive than other things. It's how much time are you investing in something? How much gold are you having to spend? And then what is the effect? If it's really fast to make but really expensive, then there has to be the effect is going to be about moderate. And so we're kind of trying to balance these 3 main things. If something takes a long time to make, it's really expensive, then the effect has to be really powerful to make it worth it. And so you have to kind of think about it as from a game designer standpoint is the time invested in this, is the gold spent going to be worth the effect? So if it's really cheap to make, it's really fast to create, then the mechanics can't be that powerful, because otherwise it would be imbalanced. And that would just be like the thing that they always go to solve all of their problems. And so you can make something really, really powerful, but it has to have some sort of drawbacks. Or you can make something really, not that powerful, like, oh, it turns your drinks red. Well, then you can't have it be very expensive to make or for it to take a long time, because there's no point in doing it then.
Right. So, for example, I was looking through here. For Alchemist Fire, it's 25 gold per attempt. It takes you 8 hours.
That's just based off of Player's Handbook.
Right, which is pretty low key. I mean, it does...
It's, I think, half what it costs in Player's Handbook, because it should be cheaper for you to make something than to buy it from someone.
I mean, if you do Masterwork version, which is DC 15 craft check, it's 1d4 damage. That seems fair to me. You also have Oil of Sharpness on the flip side, which is a 24-hour crafting time, which, is a decent amount. It's 1,600 gold. That's a lot of gold. It takes a higher, craft DC if you want Masterwork. It's 20, but it gives you a +3 bonus, which on one thing, which to me, when I first looked at it, I was like, Jesus, that's a lot, and it doesn't seem worth it. Not +3 bonus in 5e is huge, so it's pretty big comparatively to some of the other crap.
Bounded accuracy is a lie. It's a type of bounded accuracy, but actually, I don't know how true that price is.
I know you've gone through and revised some of them.
Well, no, it's because recently, I'll put a link to this, we did a series on pricing magical items, and so I don't know if that price would still hold true now, because I have not gone through back Alchemist supplies in like a year.
But it seems, I'm looking through, and it looks like you can make potions of healing. And they from a regular potion to a supreme potion, the cost goes up in parallel with the amount of the cost and time go up with in parallel to the amount that it heals you, which makes sense. So if I'm playing in a game and I have proficiency in alchemist supplies, I now have something to do with my gold, which. Did that play at all into this? I mean, if you're putting this into game, the gold economy is a mess in 5e. Everybody will agree on that. Did you find this is a good way to have people do something with not only their time, but with their gold?
Yeah, it was something to spend their gold on, but also I sold magic items, so in my game world, so, they already had something to spend gold on. They could also buy ships, houses, things of that nature. I did recently, this was before I did the tools, learn that, like, after WotC, if you follow their dungeon masters, like their charts and stuff, you're supposed to have, I think it's like over 1 million gold per player or per character after adventuring from level 1 to 20.
Like on your person, or like like over the lifespan of the character?
Over the lifespan of the character. Okay. So it's like, that seems excessive.
Yeah, Jesus. I can buy my own island with that. Okay. So, and then the inspiration to come through with some of these recipes. Now, I know you went back, and I'm just looking at it. I know, where is it? Like, you have Smokestick in here, or Thunderstone. Smokestick's from 3.5, right? Or is that from Pathfinder? So you have some ones that I know were from previous editions.
I don't remember Smokestick, where that came from. But Thunderstone is, I think it was in 3E, but I was looking through the 4E Adventuring Gear book. I forget what it's called, but I can put a link to it. And like, they had Thunderstones. I was like, oh, cool, we can carry that over. That's something useful. Some of it was also for like alchemist supplies, going through the Dungeon Master's Guide and all the potions there, and kind of giving them conversion. But I didn't do all of them because, well, I'm not going to go through, because it's a lot of work, when I can do custom items as well. But also it gives guidelines to other DMs, like if they do actually want all these potions, now they also have guidelines that they close.
Excellent.
So, I cheat by making other people do their work. It's up to them. I'm just as bad as well.
Oh, okay, I'll leave that one alone. So, in our Pathfinder campaign currently, I love crafting, except for the fact that everybody wants me to do shit for them. To be able to make, that's the other thing I wanted to ask you on this, especially with alchemist tools. How would you, let's say I created 5 moderate potions of healing, and I don't have it in front of me. What if I want to sell those? Would you determine? What if I want to live in a capitalist society, make something and sell it for a profit? Is there a way to do that? Have you looked at that at all?
No, I don't really look at that.
I
don't even think the player's handbook really has that much. I think they basically default to half the, like, for like selling armors and weapons, it's like maybe half the value. But even then, I'm not even sure if it specifies that. It's kind of up to the DM, like everything at 5e.
All right. Well, I know what your next article should be then. Perfect.
If you are personally crafting something and trying to sell it, then typically, because like alchemist supplies cost 25 gold to make, but it costs 50 gold in the player's hand. So you should be, you are not an established seller in a settlement, unless you are, in which case, you're selling anywhere between what it costs to make it plus or up to like double its value. Because that was my general idea, is to make something, it is half its value if an adventurer were to buy it. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that you can always sell it for, that much, or maybe you can sell it for more if you're really good at like persuasion or deception checks. It's kind of the situation within your game world and up to you.
Product costs are high in your fantasy world. All right. So
gotta make gold useful somehow.
Mm-hmm. So like I said, alchemy, definitely the biggest one that was on there, but the smiths tools, whatever you want to call them.
Smiths tools.
Yes. They are, this is probably one of our other popular ones, and it's my favorite one only because, and I got to go find it right now, you can have a wagon. You can have a portable forge, which I'm going to get one of these times.
Yes, a traveling forge. Costs 800 gold.
I have that in my back pocket right now, which is my bag of holding, which I probably lost.
I missed.
Yeah, I wasn't going to get into that. So let's say, I love smithing tools. I wish there was more of a way to use it, which would come back to having the game. You would need to be able to be like, okay, your shield is actually damaged for it to have a function to carry around a wagon with your forge in it and your anvil. How do you see putting these tools into the game to make it worthwhile to do this?
Okay, I get what you're saying. How do you quest with smith's tools?
Yeah, but like, what? Yeah, why would I bother doing this if my sword never, like, no one's sword ever breaks, no one's sword ever goes dull.
Throw a lot of oozes at your enemies, Chris. I mean, the players.
Yeah, shut up. But you know what I mean.
So I had a similar kind of inspiration. I made D100 list, even though I hate lists. And it is just quest for tools.
That was going to be the final thing I was going to pull up. That article was something I want to talk about too.
Oh, I found it.
Have I got a job for you? D100 quest for tools.
Yes. And so, part of that was like, all right, so I've made all these tools, but what can you really do? Like, they all have these mechanical benefits or like mechanical things so that you interact with the tool a bit more. Unfortunately, like Smith's tools, like, you're kind of restricted to what's already in the player's handbook for making. You could make more stuff, but then you're starting to move further away from that. The other thing I would add now to like Smith's tools is talking about more like rare metals and things of that nature and how that might affect these or things of that nature. But I mean, that's kind of like a small addition there.
Right.
The thing to kind of keep in mind though with tools, you can do more than just make stuff with. They can be involved inside of like side quests and things of that nature when you're running your games. Like they don't have to be a major quest focus. Like the end of the world isn't going to be reliant on your ability to smithy. But what you can do is have like little side quests that can give players access to rare materials, things of that nature, to help them build some of these items that they want. Or maybe, taking Smith's tools into account, maybe they can get access to adamantine so that they can make an adamantine hammer or make adamantine plate or things of that nature.
Right. Yeah, because one of the things I did appreciate in Smith's tools, was there any temptation? Well, for you, I know the answer is no, but it seems like there would be a temptation to be like, oh, Smith's tools, okay. You go through and you have basically the list of armors and weapons that they can create, the time and the whole process. There's no magic items on there and I appreciate that because you can make the plate mail, but then there's magic involved be able to make it +1 plate. That's not what you're talking about here, correct?
No,
you're
Smith's
talking
tools
about
is not
being
magical.
Yes, you're talking about being a blacksmith, not a magical wizard blacksmith, which I appreciate.
Which really, I mean, if we're going to look at like the historical context around blacksmithing, that meant you're probably making nails and shoe horses.
Yeah, you were making common items for people.
There were armorers who specifically, like, they only made armor because that's all they were taught. There were cutlers who made knives. That's all they did. They might make a sword, but no, their primary focus was on knives. A blacksmith typically was just building supplies, and then there was one specific for horse hooves. And so they were way back then. You were incredibly specialized in your field. Whereas now it's a little bit more like we kind of generalize blacksmithing skills to be like nail making, swords, armor, all these other things that like it would be 100 different very specializations for blacksmith. Okay. Because not everyone needs a cutler, and so you would there would be like a traveling cutler, or you would go to a fair where there's a cutler there to sell all their goods, and that's when you would buy a knife. Not, you wouldn't go over to your blacksmith buddy and be like, can you make me a knife? And they'd be like, I can make you nails. I can make some weird metal, like vaguely shaped like a knife, but like they wouldn't have the secrets towards knife making, which was like passed down from master to apprentice. And so, it's also why we have a lot of lost knowledge, because things weren't written down because people didn't know how to write. And they were I don't know if this is true, but I feel like they were more secretive about their secret.
Just us, Johnny Tremaine. Did you have to read that book? God, it was horrible.
I don't know what you're
talking about. It's a horrible book. Don't ever. The kid
I don't
was a
even know what
blacksmith.
book you're talking about.
Johnny Tremaine.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't. Yeah.
I thought that was the author.
No, no.
Okay.
Don't.
Well, I won't read it.
All right.
And so Smith's tools itself, yes, is non-magical just because it is not assumed that a blacksmith is going to have spellcasting. Now, maybe you could work with your players, and if they're a spellcaster and they have blacksmith's tools, like, hey, maybe they do know how to enchant objects. I don't.
For a real lot of gold.
I don't even know if I've made enchanter
I don't think you have.
tools. I've done like gemologists and things of that nature, but maybe I should look at doing
Wand
some
maker.
homebrew on it, enchanters.
You have Wand Maker. That's probably the most magical of the ones that I've looked through.
Well, the other issue is like, how do you make the permanency spell in 5e? Permanency was in 3e, but it cost you experience points. It only worked on very select things, and it took a lot of money. 5e, you could have it cost a lot of money, but like, what's the other trade-off for having something that's permanent? It takes a long time to cast. Well, that's not really all that great. So it's permanency is a kind of builds up all magic items, but we don't really talk about how it works or what it costs.
Yeah, no, I guess once you enchant something, it's forever enchanted unless you have to drink it, eat it, snort it.
Well,
yeah, that's what I just said.
No.
All right, so yeah, Smith's Tools was a fun one. I mean, I was looking through the different quests. That could be something else. I mean, you could have your favorite set of plate mail and then find somebody to enchant it for you, to make it into the, you've learned some sort of, secret way to build plate mail, and now it's this great thing. And yes, it can be enchanted. Maybe that's only certain armor. You have to hit a certain DC. Like, it has to be a masterwork to be able to be enchanted, and then you go on a quest to find the right guy to enchant it for you. I don't know.
That's actually in, I want to say it's 3rd edition, where only masterwork items could become +1 magic items.
Okay.
But masterwork already gave you a +1 to hit, and so the magic part just allowed you to overcome resistance.
Yeah. All right. So
getting better.
I'm
mixing up Pathfinder. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't think it's in this one. Anyways, I want to talk about 2 more tools real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Glass blowing.
I think
it is.
Oh no, it's not. It was already there.
Was it really?
Yep.
I did not know that. I've never seen it. What? Okay.
What the hell do you make with glass blowers? That's what I asked myself the entire time.
I'm like, what? I mean, really? Plus, carrying around an anvil with you is one thing. Carrying around this giant, like, forge-like thing, a kiln? It's a kiln, right? Yeah.
Well, like, I think the idea with that is more like, you have to make contacts inside of a town in order to use it. Like, Smith's Tools, you can make small items out, because you can actually get campfires rather hot enough to work with metal a little bit. But you can't get it hot enough to do like huge pieces. Just like with glass blowers, like you kind of need a shop to kind of work at. And so like this gives, DMs, if they so choose, an option to include a little bit of role playing along with the tools. Like, oh, you want access to work with some glass blowers inside of this furnace. Well, they need maybe this sand from a faraway beach before they're willing to let outsiders come in and start playing around with their tools and things of that nature. Or maybe they charge a fee in order to use their stuff. Or a variety of things. Or maybe the shop got burned down thanks to an arsonist, and hey, while we're rebuilding, if you go find that guy and maybe murder him for ruining our life's work, then we'd let you come and play with us.
Yeah, you can make a bottle to put a potion in. Anyways, so the reason I bring this one up is this one seemed like the silliest one out of all the ones.
Really? You think that's the silliest one?
But I was going to say, in your opinion, after going through all of these, which was the one that you did and you'd be like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this one?
Well, you can kind of look at order of release.
He went from, this is pretty easy, to, seriously?
Yep.
Okay, so.
Yep. You can kind of look at order of release with that. Actually, I guess the last one I made, at least official wise, I've been making some unofficial ones like gardener's tools, gemologist engraving.
Glass blowers is pretty.
Yeah, actually, it looks like maybe vehicles or is tattoo supplies. I don't remember.
No, it's not. So. That's
yeah, it might have been vehicles then, which kind of were added on. Musical instruments was one of the last ones I made. Wood carver's tools is probably the one that I struggled them like trying to think of stuff to do with, which is kind of just smith's tools. And then potter's, climber's kit. They're cool. Kind of near the end.
Maybe
like thieves tools already had something going on, so I wasn't struggling with that. It's just like, well, people already have something going on.
Well, and that was the other question I wanted to ask you. It's like, for woodworking, by the way, the town could be having a big soapbox derby, and you have to build a car for a small child. You have those that were like glass blowing. I picked that one because I was like, seriously, there's good luck with this one. I have no idea how you did that. I would have it said glass blowing's useless.
Well, that's when you come up with things.
Right, that's why you did them and I didn't. To the other end, where the one that had probably the one that was the most utilized one to be able to take that and be like, okay, thieves tools is obviously, we use this a lot. This is the one thing that you can be like, yes, you actually need this to do X, Y, and Z for your check. Well, you expanded upon it, and the biggest thing you expanded upon was something I love, which was traps. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Thieves tools?
Thieves tools. No, okay. Thieves tools.
Well, there's also snare crafters, which is also traps.
Don't really give a shit about catching a rabbit.
Well, it's more than that.
I know. But we're talking traps. Thieves tools.
Thieves tools, yeah. This one kind of more came out of the idea of... and also I wrote an article devoted to this topic of like, GMs don't always know what to do with traps. Or how do you make good traps?
Well, in 1E, you just put a pit in there with spikes in the bottom and you killed the character.
Yeah. But like the Dungeon Master's Guide had some guidelines for like damage severity by level and trap safeties and attack bonuses. So I just kind of copied that over to it. But also it's like, hey, some people like to make traps. Some people like to work against them. Traps are things that you can use tools on, so I should probably just address it. And, like, a tool is more of, like, guidance for a DM, not necessarily the player, about how to run certain mechanics. Okay. Like, these are ideas for the DM to use to try to, like, implement in their game. And so with these tools, there are a bunch of different types of locks that I included in there, which is not for the player, it's more for the DM to use this tool within their games, and also gives like different ways for the players to interact within the game, and make it more exciting than you picked the lock, how exciting, like there wasn't really that risk
because nobody ever takes, what's the spell? Is it even in 5th edition? There's like a spell that would open locks. Knock, yeah.
Yes, that's in 5th.
No, I was thinking of a different one. No one ever takes knock. Ever.
I took knock.
You haven't played a serious character in how long?
Every single character is serious. People just find their seriousness rather amusing.
Yeah, okay, we'll no.
They're very serious about who they are.
They're very serious about being a pain in the ass? Yeah, I got it.
I can't help it if they're just humor... If people find humor in who they are.
It's their defense mechanism for dealing with the things that want to eat them in the real world.
But yeah, so like there's different traps, and like again, these aren't really for players. they kind of, if they read through this, they kind of have an idea as to how these tools might interact with the traps, but it's more to give ideas to GMs about what type of weird traps can they include and things for their players to interact with.
Yeah, Swinging Blade sucks. That would really ruin your day. 10d10 slashing.
Swinging? I don't see it.
Swinging Blade triggers a pressure plate. Perception DC is 18. Gets plus 12 to hit, and it cuts you in half.
Yes. Well, I mean, no, that's damage on successes half.
I know, but in my brain, it cuts you in half.
Well, I mean, if you're a commoner, yes, because 10d10 is a lot more than 4 hit. Even if you roll minimum, that's still double your hit point maximum. So yeah, you would dead. But like something like Petrification Trap, that's not really something that a player can build, or a Sphere of Annihilation Trap, not something a player can build. But hey, DMs, here's some traps I've done. Sphere of Annihilation might be one of my favorite ones.
Oh my god, was the campaign you ran where there was like a hole or a door or something we couldn't see through it? And we're like, should we reach through? Should we walk through? And I was like, I don't know. And it was a Sphere of Annihilation that came out.
Yes, eventually. When you put up magical darkness, no one can see through it anyways. And so people with dark vision are like, oh, there can't be anything dangerous in there. I can't see into it. And so then you hide a Sphere of Annihilation inside of the magical darkness, and then you just watch as they walk through and they get hurt.
I don't think the only thing I think that saved me was the fact that they move really slow, if I remember correctly. It's like 10 feet.
Well, I think the thing that saved you was that someone else triggered the trap as they walked into it first.
That's right. Never going first, kids.
And you tried using daylight because daylight counteracts magical darkness, and so like it's radius, and you're like, oh, that magical darkness isn't fading away. Weird.
Now it's rolling towards us. Everything about this is bad. All right.
Yeah. Hide more Spheres of Annihilation inside of magical darkness. That's the best trap. I don't know what to. Yeah.
So for these, I like the fact that you are using traps as a method for the DM to be able to use for the players to engage with their traps. You know what I mean? The Thieves' Tools are required. Hey, I'm giving you traps. Let's break away from Thieves' Tools. We're talking about Thieves' Tools. What are you going to do to use them? Here's the traps. We have to create all these traps first, and then now the players have a use for the Thieves' Tools.
That's the goal for all tools, is like, hey, GM, here's ways that you can use these tools campaign. Yes, when you look at something like alchemist supplies or brewing supplies, like it's just recipes, but the recipes can be used as treasure for completing quests. It could be like, if you want this one recipe, but only this one tavern has it, like they're willing to share it with you, but you have to go on a quest first, and then you get a reward, which is like a written down recipe of this thing that you're looking for. Or they might require weeds, in which case you have to go out into the world and find weird ingredients, like the wand maker tools, or whatever I called them. They all have like, going off of something like inspired by Harry Potter, where it's like, oh, this wand has a core of like dragon heartstring. Like, these are all weird ingredients that do different things. And so like the idea is you go out there, you find those ingredients to make your tools.
I love that, because in the earlier editions, like now, if it has a material component, you'll be like, ooh, great, a pinch of iron dust and mistletoe's in everything, by the way. The higher level spells, you needed some serious materials. You couldn't just be like, I'm casting delayed fireball. It was like, hold on a second, that's not going to be in your components pouch, which didn't exist, because realistically the only thing I can think of off the top of my head that we've constantly used is, I think it's Revivify. You need a gem that's
300 GP worth of diamonds.
Right. Past that, But to your point,
most items don't require components that have a gold piece cost. Like Identify requires 100 gold. I think it's opal, and so in which case,
But I like the fact that you can take that, and yes, I'm cutting you off because you'll just go down the rabbit hole. About gold economy.
Heroes Feast. You guys cast Heroes Feast a couple times. It requires 1,000 gold goblet.
That's true, but a lot of those hires, you'd have to specifically find that tail feather or a phoenix to be able to cast the spell. So I like it. That's one of the reasons that it really appealed to me.
And the issue is, so many players are used to material components not really being important for casting a spell, because you can just replace it with an arcane focus or a material component pouch, that they don't look at what the material components are because it's unimportant. Like, the game has made it unimportant. And so I had someone like, I didn't realize Fireball required background. That's hilarious. It's like you've been playing this game for 5+ years and you just now looked at the material components of a spell you cast all the time. Like it's like
you're literally throwing flaming bat shit at somebody.
We got trained not to notice the importance of it. And when you look at those material components, you realize, hey, there's a lot of quests that can be involved here. And so like looking back at like wand makers, like that was a major focus where it's like, hey, these material components can be important. We can do stuff with them. Of course, now I'm wondering if I'm remembering wand makers tools correctly.
So to pull it all together for that, it's almost, here's like alchemy. For the alchemist tools, you can take that, a player can look at that and be like, oh, this is great. I want to bring this to their DM and be like, hey, have you seen this? Looks great. I want to be able to create some of these. What can we do? The flip side to that is for thieves tools, a DM's going to take that and be like, wow, these are great. How am I going to incorporate that into a campaign? So you've covered both sides of the spectrum. I think that certain tools can appeal to certain groups, certain to the players or the DM, because I know people that have gotten this, they're like, hey, I showed this to my DM. I want to be able to do that. And we've incorporated it into our game. The flip side is I've seen DMs come back and be like, hey, I found this and I've added it into my games and my players love it. So both sides can look at it. It's not the old, you can't look at it.
Whoever made this is an idiot.
No, we haven't gotten that.
I know, I got one for Xanathars. It's like, the ones in Xanathars are perfectly fine. You don't need to recreate them all.
No, the ones I love are when the people like will tell you, historically that's not correct because a cobbler was blah, 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 and tells you like, I'm like, really? I don't.
People are passionate about the weird knowledge they have.
Really weird knowledge. What was the one? There was one that, it was someone going into the radiant heat that is produced from a fire in Smith's tools that would be needed. I was just like, I failed chemistry. I don't care. It's a fucking made up game. Anyways, you live in a magic world. So where do you see yourself going next with the tools kits
I don't know.
and stuff?
Maybe I'll come up with more ideas to make stuff.
Okay. Is there anything
I need to go back through and like some updates and maybe add in some more magic items and stuff.
Is there? There have been additional recipes for 5 of them, correct?
Yeah. There's additional. So if you're willing to pay a small fee and buy off of the Dumpstat store, we have made additional recipes for alchemist supplies, herbalism kits. Actually, the herbalism ones are nice because you can also get an illustrated version where you have like artwork and stuff for unlike cards and stuff that you can give to your players just to make it. There's brewer supplies. There's
Smiths.
No, I haven't done Smiths.
Poisoner kit.
Poisoners. Yes, there's poisoners. There's something else. I can't remember.
Poisoners is also one that's very useful in the game. I think that's one of the ones that can be utilized also more than others. Okay. And
maybe one day they'll all get shoved into a single book. And
I was just about to say, hey, you're going to cut this piece out, but I was going to say, so when are you going to combine all these into one book? And
Cocaine. That was the other one.
Cocaine?
Cocaine.
Okay.
I don't know. Who knows, Chris? Who knows? I mean, OneD&D's coming out soon, so it's like, do I update these for OneD&D or like, it's technically backwards compatible, so do I just make the DM do all the work?
If you're happy just having me bug you about it every month from now to the end of time, that's fine.
Hey, we get more people saying that they want a book of tools. I'll start clearing off projects from my list too.
Well, if I had access to the actual things and I could do it myself, but you won't give that to me, so fuck you.
Well, that's because, Chris,
it's proprietary information.
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's proprietary Steven information.
Yeah, Dumpstat owns all that. You were working for Dumpstat when you did it.
No,
we're like a software company.
I was working for myself.
Whatever. Anyways, okay, so if you haven't taken a look at the tools, definitely take a look at the tools, but I think the great tie-in for the tools was the quest for tools, because it actually, and a lot of them are good for especially low levels. I mean, there's a lot of simple things to do.
A lot of them are great to just roll a D100 and then, like someone can't make it, so you just want to do a side quest instead of like the main quest thing. You're like, oh, this blacksmith needs weird Umber Hulk armor. It's probably in the cave over there. Go in there.
And that was the other thing I was thinking about with that is like, talking about downtime days, it's like, great, okay, they're tired of going into the dungeon and trying to have a run home to heal, so we're going to just have them take a left turn a little bit and they have to go do X, Y, and Z. It's something that is just nice to get off the beaten path once in a while. So they're fun throw-in kind of adventures. Side quests are very underrated these days. Players would rather just do dumb shit instead of going to side quest.
I did write about how to create quests
I know.
this last week, so I'll leave to that one.
Good.
Just, in case you want to include more or like come up with better ways of making quests and trying to understand like the intricacies between like what's a major quest, minor quest, side quest, like where do you draw the line? Things.
Usually when they're dead. So, all right. So I think probably our next podcast will be on OneD&D, because by then the second UA should be out for it. I think it's coming out October 1st. They're supposed to release it monthly.
They said they were going to try and do it monthly.
They said they're releasing it Monday. Was it Monday? A week from Monday? No.
I don't know. I don't know
what day it is. Yeah, I don't. Time has no meaning.
New stuff. So, I just know they said that they would be doing like their goal is monthly, but it wouldn't.
We can talk about OneD&D a little bit more as it moves on. I think it's going to merit more conversation. And plus, there's not another book coming out. Or we can just put a poll up again on our Patreon and see what people want us to talk about.
I mean, Dragonlance is coming out in December, and I have no interest in buying their pre-order thing on these website because
a lot of money.
Yeah, well, it's also the other issue is like I'm kind of losing my excitement for like their product releases, especially with how Spelljammers came out, where it's just like that was not useful.
Well, yeah, we'll have to see.
The most useful part about you was the Monster Man part.
Well, and then, I think a lot of people are going to be stuck in neutral because they're waiting for OneD&D to come out. So it should be interesting.